Israel and the US versus the Middle East 2.0. NATO spending up at last. How to say to vax or not to vax in Tagalog and more. The Monica Perez Show starts now. Our top story today is Gaza could be, I would say, just the beginning, but it's really more like the middle because our hostility in the Middle East has been going on for decades, obviously. And I just read, we're so focused on what's happening in Gaza that I think the feeling is just waiting for it to end. And that is not, some people are thinking very differently about this. So, first of all, just so you know, for all the talk and all the Democrat kowtowing to the pro Palestinian protesters, two key Democrats in the Congress who had been holdouts agreed to approve a major arms sale to Israel. So it says it includes 50 F-15 fighter jets worth more than $18 billion. And it said that these two guys, Representatives Gregory Meeks and Senator Ben Cardin, have signed off on the deal under heavy pressure from the Biden administration. They had held up the sale for months. Okay, so that opens the door to more. And I read an op-ed in the Journal today. This is what alarmed me. The title was "No Time to Fiddle as Hezbollah Burns Northern Israel. The Jewish State Needs a Comprehensive Strategy Against the Threat from Lebanon." So then it has an atrocity picture of a brush fire on a little hill of land, unlike the atrocity pictures that you're getting from Gaza. But it says, Northern Israel is on fire. Hezbollah, Iran's terrorist proxy in Lebanon. They always have to interject the extreme, propaganda viewpoint. Launched more than 300 rockets and drones across the border between June 12th and June 13th. And it goes on to say, and I don't understand why it has to be Iran's terrorist proxy. It's like a legit border thing, right? So why do I have to say it's Iran's terrorist proxy? The problem is there on the border with Israel and Lebanon. It's the Israel's Defense Force spokesman Daniel Hagari said on Sunday, Hezbollah's increasing aggression is bringing us to the brink of what could be a wider escalation, one that could have devastating consequences for Lebanon and the entire region. So he says Hezbollah's increasing aggression. But in the same paragraph, it says the attacks came in response to Israel's killing of Taleb Abdullah, a commander south of the Litani River on June 11th. June 11th, the Litani River is in Lebanon. Okay, so the war, and it says, launched by Iran-supported militias on October 7th. This is all, it's about Iran. I think we probably have pretty much subdued Iran, and they are most likely, in my opinion, either are now or are soon to be totally controlled opposition. And I always thought it was important for Iran to be the big enemy because that encompasses the entire Middle East. If it's Jordan or something, or if it's actually Lebanon, then it seems like you don't have to involve Syria, Iraq, all the other countries. But they want it. And I said that before, this article brings that idea absolutely home. It says, the war has long exceeded the single front in Gaza. Yemen's Houthis, they are so abused. Yemen is the poorest country in the world, I think, or maybe tied with Haiti. Last I looked, something could be worse now. But anyway, Yemen's Houthis have closed the Red Sea to international shipping and, along with Iraqi Shiite militias, regularly launch drones and missiles at Israel. The attacks aren't only directed at the Jewish state. More than 170 attacks took place on U.S. and allied forces in Syria and Iraq between October and February. So we've already become involved. They can already say, not that we don't know that, right? But they can already say that that we have to get involved for the protection of American what? Personnel, assets. So we go to foreign countries, we build buildings there, we buy businesses there, we send troops there. And then when we do provocative things, and by that I mean kill hundreds of thousands of people, we're like, well, we have to defend ourselves in somebody else's country. Sorry, I mean, like you already know this, I know, but it's just interesting because it all comes together in this article because it says, and actually, I was looking into this because I was thinking, I think we like overtly, not like behind Israel or anything like that, overtly killed, well, dropped tens of thousands of bombs on Syria. Tens of thousands. Like, how many people did we kill? Some estimates are in the hundreds of thousands. And I don't remember the protests being as intense or numerous or getting the media coverage. I mean, it definitely didn't get the media coverage. So that was like a tell to me because I believe that there's probably 36,000 people, civilians killed in Gaza. I was looking at this was at Brown University. So I mean, there are legit anti-war left. So anyway, it says this was a study they did. It said the U.S. post 9/11 wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, and Pakistan have taken a tremendous human toll on those countries. As of September 2021, an estimated 432,000 civilians in those countries have died violent deaths as a result of the wars. As of May 2023, an estimated 3.6 to 3.8 million people have died indirectly in post 9/11 war zones. Total death toll in these war zones could be at least 4.5 to 4.7 million. Civilian deaths have resulted from U.S. post-military operations in Somalia and other countries. So we have killed a ton of people. Although this is really funny. Wikipedia says that the U.S. has killed 3,000 civilians in Syria since 2011, and it was like up to 2024, supposedly an updated number. Yet, just clicking through some links of like U.S. government statistics, just Operation Inherent Resolve, which is a totally offensive name, but that's Iraq, Syria, and Libya. That does not include Afghanistan, which is like ongoing. In 2016, that was Obama, 30,000 bombs were dropped on Syria. In 2017, which was Trump, almost 40,000 bombs were dropped. I didn't realize that he outdid Obama in bombing. So what is the likelihood? So in 2 years, there were 70,000 bombs dropped on Syria. And the current cumulative toll of civilians that we have killed there is 3,000. I don't believe that. But it did make me think that, like, I just think, of course, who's going to win, Biden or Trump? And people are like, oh, well, people want Trump or people want Biden. I'm like, that has nothing to do with it. It has more to do. I mean, to some extent, I think they'll give you whichever one you want more if that works for them, unless they're looking for you to be pissed and have a civil war. But mainly it's to get what they want done. And it looks like they want this expansive all Middle East war. And I think Trump is probably your better guy for that. They'll probably negotiate. Well, I mean, just speculating, but they could negotiate a settlement in Ukraine that makes it look like Trump is not really the super war guy, but then he's the finish it now guy. So this could really explode. But this was the thing where it says the prospect, this article, this op-ed, it gets scary. The prospect of open war between Israel and Hezbollah dwarfs developments in Gaza. The Institute for National Security Studies, a Tel Aviv-based think tank. It's like every word of that. It's like that Far Side where like the dog, you're talking to the dog and the dog's name is Ginger. All the dog hears is blah, 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 Ginger, blah, 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 food, blah, 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 Ginger. Like I see that. The Institute for National Security Studies, a Tel Aviv-based think tank is like propaganda, propaganda, propaganda. Blah, 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 propaganda, propaganda, estimates that the group has around 200,000 rockets and missiles, including precision-guided munitions capable of hitting targets in Israel within a few yards radius. Hey, look, if you don't have a viable enemy, you can't get yourself a war, Cold War or hot war. That's why Oppenheimer gave the bomb to Russia, in my opinion, was at the behest of the defense industry. because we just didn't have any good enemies out there. So Hezbollah has missiles such as the Fatah, uh, whatever. And it says the group boasts ground forces of somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 fighters. And it says war between Israel and Hezbollah could lead to a wider regional conflagration. And then it says Iran controls a corridor through Iraq and Syria into Lebanon and could send people through there. And along the way could just pop off missiles and stuff. So that, you know what I mean? That's why I always thought Iran was what they focused on. Focus far away. You can include everything in between. So this article is suggesting, quote, increased air attacks up to Beirut, possibly accompanied by a ground incursion, would be among the list of options for Israel to deal with Hezbollah. It says the 36th Armored Division, which played a prominent role in the invasion of Gaza, is training close to the Lebanon border. Wow. I was just waiting for this to end. And it looks to me like it may, and I would say just the beginning, but it may be just the middle. So that flows into the next article that I read, and this was on the CFR. CFR is like the Council of Foreign Relations, Foreign Affairs. I got an email from them, like with the summary of foreign news. Don't sign up for that if you don't want to like just wake up depressed with your first sip of coffee. You're welcome, by the way. So anyway, it was the heading was record 23 NATO countries hit defense spending target. And they said that in 2014, when I think they literally said something about like Russia's first aggression towards Ukraine, which is hilarious because it's 2014 is when the US conducted a coup against the democratically elected government of Ukraine for his arm's length and favorable transaction with Putin to buy gas in exchange for very favorable bonds. So I can't even remember what bullshit they started talking about there, but they're saying that at that time, the NATO countries agreed to get their spending up to 2% defense spending by 2024, which is where they are now. And some spend almost as much as 4%, which is what we spend. Now, do you remember? Because I remember it and I commented it at the time, Trump saying, pounding the table like NATO needs to step up. It's a bull BS, whatever. I don't get bleeped. BS agreement. They don't hold up to their end of the bargain. And I'm thinking, yes, NATO sucks. We should be out of it. And there's no reason for it. It's just actually creates war. It's a totally illegitimate alliance because we are in no danger from any of that if we mind our own business and respect that we have thousands of miles of ocean in all directions. So his answer to what NATO being deadbeats is they need to not only hit their 2% target, we want 4%. We want 4% for them. And I'm thinking, what could possibly go wrong if you spend 4% of your GDP on state-of-the-art weaponry and you're next to some guy that we throw rocks at? Like, it's crazy. And that's exactly where they're headed with all this. It could go either way. They were planning on it, and that's why they're doing it, which is definitely true. Or they knew that once these guys had all the money and that there was such a huge industry within the country that demanded, gobbled up more of the money, lobbied and paid for elections and everything, that it would be a fait accompli, that they would just have a defense state, a military industrial complex in each single state, just like we have. So I was trying to remember, he said 4%. And I was trying to remember, it's like, did Aristotle say to like aim for the other extreme and then you might get in the middle? Is that what he's going for? Like the 2% was halfway to 4%. What Aristotle actually said, because I Googled it, is when I was asking what Aristotle said, and have you noticed this, that instead of just having like a little summary at the top like Google used to have, it has a little summary at the top like Google used to have, but it says AI summary. It says AI overview. It's just so funny because it's just, and I'm convinced now that this is true, that what they're calling AI is just like fast cumulative search and aggregation thing. It's not AI. So whatever. It's AI. It's not AGI, as the Harris brothers would correct. so actually what Aristotle said was to aim at the mean between the two extremes. But I feel like that's a stepping stone to the Hegelian dialectic, which is kind of aim at the other side. Whatever. You get the idea. Trump saying 4% is the same as Trump just big snaps to the 2%. But he's getting it. And there was a moment when Stoltenberg said that I thought I had an actual, yeah, here it is. I have a quote. Stoltenberg, he's the head of NATO. I just think it's funny, like I'm sure these guys are liberal. You know what I mean? They're like these from Nordic countries, are super liberal, have the Nobel Peace Prize, and they're like, we need more war money. He said, we see the clear message from President Donald Trump is having an impact. This is 2019. He said that we see that the clear message from President Trump is having an impact. These guys are starting to spend their money. So they have. And especially the more deadbeaty ones, Canada and others have, their average spending went from 1.43% of GDP to 2.02%. NATO countries spend over $1 trillion in defense each year. So I'm looking at this. This is like one of my favorite things to point out when it comes to defense spending. So let's just say most countries are on our side. Okay. You could go through all the defense, 160 or whatever countries report defense money, but let's just take the top 10 because like at least 80% of like global defense spending is up there in well, I don't know if it's 80%, but a lot. So you get a lot, it dwindles quickly is what I'm saying. So when I looked at these numbers of what are the top 10 defense spenders, it's the US, China, Russia, India, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, UK, Germany, Ukraine, France, and Japan. Those are the top 10 defense spenders. Okay. So the US spends more than 50% of the top 10 defense. Of the cumulative number of all those countries, it's about 1.8 trillion. And the US spends the official number, which is an underestimate in my opinion, 0.9 trillion. So $900 billion. More than 51%, more than 50% of that number. China. So US and the NATO countries plus Ukraine. So those are 5 of those countries are NATO countries and Ukraine. The UK, Germany, France, and Ukraine and the US spend $1.2 trillion on defense. $1.2 trillion on defense. The other 5 countries, I would say Saudi Arabia is clearly an ally. Japan is clearly an ally. If not, I think a Japanese person told me once, our puppy. I love Japan. I don't mean to be mean, but that's what she told me. India, I guess I would count as an ally. And I mean, maybe you take that out, but in any case, even without India, 1.3 trillion of us and our allies in that 10%. Leaving out China, which spends 296 billion, and Russia, which spends $109 billion. This was off a wiki. I mean, that sounds incredibly low. I thought it was more than that for Russia, and maybe this isn't the best number. India's 80 billion. But the fact is, let's say it's 500 billion. Let's just say we collectively spend double. Do we really need to spend more? And you know what? Where are they even going to put all the bombs? Like, I feel like they are planning to drop them. It's not cool. So anyway, not a big fan of increased NATO spending. All right, so here's something out of the Pentagon. They are multifaceted group there, the defense industry, and sounds like they have completely absorbed global health as a weapon on behalf of their clients, global corporations and big pharma. The Pentagon, here's a headline people have been talking about. Pentagon launched secret anti-vax campaign to discredit China during the COVID pandemic. So it looks like I'm frozen again, which I find to be extremely annoying. And I don't know if I should stop so that my screen unfreezes. Shoot, come on. I'm doing it. I'm going to leave and come back. Well, thank you for waiting. I most certainly will not let that happen again. Um, so, okay, I'm back. Thank you very much for waiting. Thank you very much for waiting. That happened twice already. I'm going to say I'm going to do my darndest for it not to happen again, and I will figure it out. So anyway, here's the thing. So the Pentagon um, launched a secret anti-vax campaign to discredit China during the COVID pandemic. That was a big wower of a headline. People are talking about that, and it seems really crazy. Except, I think I know what it was all about, and it's just pathetic. It's mercenary, in my opinion. Mercantile, even. The Pentagon allegedly coordinated a clandestine effort to discredit Sinovac from spring 2020 through the summer of 2021 during both the Trump and Biden administrations, which I think is funny because they're the same. Like this, they do the same things. It's like a coordinated. These are policies that have nothing to do with the puppet on the string. It does not matter if they give the lines to Punch or to Judy. I don't even know which one is which. So this is how they did it. Over 300 fake social media accounts allegedly intended to impersonate Filipinos wary of Chinese vaccine program. The posts included a handful of gripes over the quality of face masks and test kits, as well as China's vaccine, with the hashtag ChinaAngVirus. China is the virus in Tagalog. So the investigation also found that effort extended beyond the Philippines into Central Asia and the Middle East. This is interesting. Where Reuters reported the anti-vax post claimed the Sinovac shot should be forbidden under Islamic tradition because they contain pork what? Pork gelatin. Okay. Isn't that interesting? Because there was a big thing going around here that you shouldn't take. It was the J&J shot actually had supposedly remnants of a cell strain that came from an aborted fetus. The other ones had testing on aborted fetuses, but it wasn't in there. That's what my research came up with. And I thought they are really pushing that. They're pushing that. I don't know why. But they did push it, and it could be because J&J was the disfavored shot. They did not want you to get that here. And I almost wonder if it was actually a lot of people did get sick right out of the gate from that one. Although I think over time, if you didn't get sick right away, I don't know. That's simply anecdotal and like from the movie Anecdotal. So that people did get sick. But I don't know what I don't know why they did that, but thought that was interesting because they did it here too. So, but here's what I think it's all about. It ends up that I get this is the best I can piece together. So Duterte, is that how you pronounce it? He was the president of the Philippines back then, and it was kind of weird because they had like Islamic terrorism in this super Catholic country. He seemed like a huge dictatorial jerk. I didn't know, it's hard to tell what's propaganda and what isn't. So I couldn't really tell if that was there. He was really a target of ours, or if he was whatever, like a puppet of ours. But and I can't tell if people really fall for the vax thing, and that I doubt like a guy like him would have been inside the war room with Fauci, and figure out what was really going on. So my best guess is they were hit. Supposedly they were hit hard from COVID. It says it was these. I went and got articles from back then. It said Philippines is a COVID hotspot. It has more than 1 million cases, 1.3 million cases. There was in a population of 106 million. So 1% of the people had COVID, and there were at least 24,000 deaths. So it's the first thing I look at. Did we send them ventilators? And yes, we did. August 2020, the United States donated 100 new state-of-the-art ventilators and associated supplies to the Philippines to assist its fight against COVID-19. And I'm thinking, trying to do the math, like how many people can you kill with 100 ventilators? I'm like, probably one a week. It's sick. It's morbid. I'm not. I laugh out of, it's like nervous laughter almost, because it's so macabre. But I mean, the whole COVID thing. Think of all the people who died because of these awful, awful, sinister plots. So I think that he completely believed, Duterte completely believed in COVID, completely believed in the vaccines. So there was an article from 2020 that said the Southeast Asian country will procure COVID-19 vaccines developed by China, the US-German partnership, Pfizer-BioNTech, the UK's AstraZeneca, and Russia's Sputnik 5. So China, UK, US, and Russia, they were going to spread the wealth. They were going to buy from everybody. Well, I don't think we like that. And I think what we wanted was for them to just get US vaccines. And it said, so here was a line from one of those articles. The public has grown skeptical over this. So they didn't know that it was US actors acting, sending out all this anti-Chinese vax propaganda. And so what they were really reporting, this guy, he was a professor in Manila. He said the Philippine people do not trust the Chinese vaccine, but mobbed a mall when Pfizer-BioNTech shots were offered. So it was very effective to get them to want the vaccine, but to not want the Chinese vaccine. So it says Duterte and his administration faced criticism over the vaccination campaign that's been saddled with supply problems and public hesitancy. Even though vaccines started in March because the Chinese one was available earlier, that's where this all came from. Many still opted to wait for Western vaccines, prompting some cities to offer snacks and discounts. Sound familiar? August. Okay, so here's another wrinkle. They get the guy to believe in COVID, believe in the vaccine, not be able to get his people to take the Chinese vaccines, and face criticism and a lot of pressure and anxiety. So I knew some Filipinos here who were like, super freaked about COVID and everything, like very double masky. Which is weird because I never think of like really religious people getting. I feel like the Catholics were not super vaxxy. So I don't know if that was something they were getting out of their own country's propaganda and their own language and stuff. I really don't know where that was coming from. But I'm only even bringing it up because there may have been a lot of pressure on Duterte to respond to this, and he was in a bind. So at the same time, he had been saying he was no longer going to renew the U.S. visiting forces agreement. He was going to kick the U.S. out of the country. And I think we had 4 or 5 bases there at the time. So he said, he said he would offer that the VFA as a concession in exchange for COVID-19 vaccines donated by President Biden, including more than 3 million Moderna shots and a similar number of J&J doses. So, which is weird because J&J was the aborted one and they're all Catholic. That's kind of nasty. This is really funny. So he was really a jerk about it. He said later on, he said he would use the US donated vaccines to entice Filipinos who have not yet been inoculated to get the shots, and resurging confirmed daily amid surging cases. The Philippine president has threatened to order the arrest of Filipinos who refuse the vaccine and told them to leave the country if they would not cooperate. He was going to take down names. He told regional leaders to take down names of resistors. He said, "Don't get me wrong. There is a crisis being faced in this country. There is a national emergency. If you don't want to get vaccinated, I'll have you arrested and I'll inject the vaccine in your butt." Can you freaking believe that? But here, throughout these articles, it talks about donated vaccines. So that means that you and I are probably paying for it. However, they were probably paying for some too, because in one of the articles, it said the government will take out loans totaling a staggering 73 billion Philippine pesos, or $1.5 trillion to purchase the vaccines. I actually should have fact checked that. That is I cut and pasted that from the article. I have my show notes in the MonicaPerezShow.com. But $1.5 trillion. How is that even? What is the GDP of Philippines? Like, I don't know. I want to fact check that, but let's suffice it to say that there is absolutely no way that they were getting it all free. And that is probably why they wanted the Chinese to malign the Chinese one. However, I ran across another expression, vaccine diplomacy, where if you give people vaccines, then they owe you one, they like you better, yada, yada. I'm not sure that one's going to stand the test of time. But what Philippines have been on my radar, because they had an election a couple of years ago. Duterte, I think that they have like a 1 6-year term. I'm not sure he could have even run again. But in his wake was elected, and I'm almost certain it was with U.S. help, like actual on the ground, boots on the ground help, whether they were mercenaries or soldiers, I don't know. But the Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos, who were absolutely had to run from the country, the Philippines, they were so corrupt. She was known to have just thousands of pairs of shoes. She had probably, it was probably every Birkin bag available at the time. Like she had, and those I definitely don't have one. All of my purses together would never equal the value of a Birkin bag. It's scandalous. It's not only criminal, but I mean, it's the kind of thing that cries out to heaven for vengeance because of the poor people that they were exploiting. And their son, little Ferdinand Jr., Bong Bong, they call him, won the election. And as luck would have it, Duterte's daughter, in a kind of like two-party uniparty thing, ran as his VP. So everybody's happy, I guess. Now, who's not happy is Manny Pacquiao, who also ran for president and did not win, but he's a senator, so there. I'm sure he's happy with that. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Can't make this stuff up. All right, let's do just a few comments. I still have like 3 or 4 more articles and a clip, a funny, lighthearted clip. I had a super heavy clip from a documentary made by a woman named Mindy Robinson about Vegas, the Vegas event. And I really am afraid I couldn't get through. It would take my whole channel down through the live stream if I played any clips from that. But I highly recommend you track that thing down. I think it's called Route 91. I'd be happy to talk to her. I'm going to try to figure out a way I can share this with you. But anyway, Crazy stuff. Crazy, 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 crazy stuff. So I did just want to direct people, please, if you want to hear this show without commercials, I have a premium feed only on iTunes at the moment, but I'm about to expand to Spotify and maybe more generally, but helps me out a little bit. And please give me a rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to this Monica Perez show. And since I'm really pretty clearly almost totally shadow banned, if you would share the show, especially if it's somebody you know who used to like my work, tell them I'm back. Okay. So I am going to just look at a couple cat techniques. Hi, cat. How many pairs of shoes and purses did we pay for in those donations? Because we used to donate to the Philippines because they were so poor. Is that right? Yeah, probably all went to them. How, Renee asks, how can we put a rating on iTunes if we have no Apple? I'm super sorry, but do it on Spotify, do it on anything, or just share the show with somebody. Just share the show with somebody that you think might like it. She also says that she downloaded that Vegas documentary and can put it on Rumble. So if you can tell us where to get you on Rumble, that would be great. Um, yeah. That's sweet. Renee is keeping track of who's listening and who's watching, and it just I get like I'll have a couple of hundred people watching the show. I can see the number of how many people are watching the show, and then after the show, it like zeroes out. So it'll be like 5 people watched it, and but I don't know. I'm sure they do that for everybody, but it's a little annoying. It's a little annoying, and the more views you get, the more it gets pushed up this search engine, but whatever, doesn't matter. Dee's last, hey Dee's, thanks for the great work you do. Don't forget to ask supporters for more value for value. Just for now, I do want to set up a membership thing and like a portal for giving me some support because I do pay for it, but I've been slow on the rolling that up. All right, so let me give you just a couple more stories, and then I'll give you a clip that will absolutely make you laugh. All right. So we were talking about the vax thing. Pfizer, this is really awesome. Pfizer is being sued by Kansas for allegedly hiding COVID vaccine risks and making false claims. They're accusing them of hiding, making false claims about effectiveness and hiding the risks of myocarditis, miscarriage, pericarditis. They said it was false to claim that it would stop the spread. So I guess they have evidence that they claimed that. And they're looking for money damages. So that to me means that this is not a criminal case, but that vaccine shield, there's a vaccine liability shield, which should be a red flag. Like no one should be shielded from liability. Like I actually am doing a live stream tomorrow with a guy who's corporations experts, an economist and a libertarian, but corporations guy. And I'm going to ask him what he thinks about limited liability corporations. Like some liability limitations I can understand, but I would want to hold people responsible for probably more than they're held responsible for now. But the vaccine liability shield is basically total, not only for people, but for the companies. However, if it's intentional, if it's fraud or deception or whatever, that I think vacates that shield. So although this isn't criminal, and that would mean that it would be like the preponderance of the evidence, like just has to be most likely that they knew about it, could open the door for more litigation that could actually remove the liability shield. But let me tell you, after paying attention to the election stuff in Georgia, I know that if you get close enough, they slap you down. So I don't think that will ever happen, and I'll tell you why. In the SPARS document, that Johns Hopkins document from 2017, they have a place in there that says there was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of people who claimed vaccine injury, and there was some evidence to support it, but there wasn't a full investigation yet. But what we really want, and this is Johns Hopkins, so I think Johns Hopkins is just like a, puppet of big pharma. I could be wrong. It's just my like first pass gut feeling. But so when they're making recommendations and SPARS, I feel like this is what big pharma wants. Well, their recommendation in response to people claiming vaccine injuries was not to go through VAERS anymore, because that might, or go through that vaccine compensation fund, which is established for a kind of not like fraud or whatever. The SPARS document recommends that Congress create a fund funded by us, the taxpayer, that will compensate victims of the vaccine in exchange for dropping all the class action suits. And there wouldn't be any class action suits if there weren't culpability, like real knowing culpability. So this could open the door to that. But I feel like then the next step would be to just have a compensation fund and settle all the suits without actually setting precedents, establishing facts, anything like that. I thought that was very interesting. Another thing, that I think this is something that's going around that I believe is probably being misrepresented. The 2025 NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, has a line in it that says, amends the Military Selective Service Act to require the registration of women for selective service. It looks very official because it's the document, but it's a draft. It has to go through Senate. Congress has to, or the House brings its own draft, and then they get reconciled. So that line is in there, which is it's not good. It doesn't make me feel good about having a daughter going forward, her future prospects, but it isn't passed yet. And it would be good if we make people aware of that's in there. So there's no possibility they can just slide it under the radar. So last thing I'll tell you before we get to our clip. This is something that's been in the news all day. Biden gives legal status to immigrant spouses of U.S. citizens. Program offers work permits, deportation protections, and a path to citizenship. It's kind of, there's like, I think hundreds of thousands of people in this category, but it's a little bit of a, like only certain people qualify. I believe it's people who entered illegally, got married illegally, whatever that means, and have been here for 10 years with this illegal status. So if you do it, if you're an American citizen and you marry somebody, I mean, you have to do some paperwork, but it's automatic. They get a green card pretty quickly. And then after 2 years, you can't take that back. If they keep their noses clean, they get to be citizens. So that's why if you're going to pay somebody to marry you, you only have to do it for 2 years, and then you can get a divorce like day 2 of your 3rd year. And so but the way they're doing it, so apparently if you've done this, if you've been illegally married, you're illegal, you have to leave the country for 10 years before becoming eligible for a green card, which is a funny little thing to do. I mean, it's pretty harsh. That's pretty drastic. But Biden's program is underpinned by a provision of immigration law known as parole in place, which allows the government to admit these immigrants legally and allowing them to stay here rather than leave. It makes it much easier to apply for a green card and can't easily be undone by Trump if he becomes elected. And it says, while immigrants apply for permanent residency, the parole in place grants them deportation relief and access to a work permit. Wow, that's big. Anyway, so I am now predicting a slew of divorces, about 200,000 divorces in 2 years and 1 day, or something like that. I just think that's how it rolls. So, okay. Well, there you have it. Please don't forget to, this is a clip. I'm going to stop and start a little bit. It's funny. Let's see what we got here. I have 2 computers working. Let's see if I can get this right. All right. So I don't know much about this. I just thought it was hilarious. It's Kevin Spacey on Piers Morgan.
Where do you live now? Uh,
I mean, come on. Come on. Seriously? I thought he was a much better actor than that.
well, it's funny you asked that question because this week, where I have been living in Baltimore, is being foreclosed on. My house is being
Is he reading a script?
sold at auction.
Really?
So I have to go back to Baltimore and put all my things in storage.
Really?
Okay, so he said his house was being foreclosed on and sold at auction. I believe he said it was Baltimore. Maryland has a homestead law. So the last thing you would do if you were facing bankruptcy is sell the house, but they also couldn't take it out from under you unless he owns so many other houses or whatever. I don't know. But also to be foreclosed upon means that you have a mortgage. Generally, I would say the reason you would be foreclosed upon is that you have a mortgage that is greater than the value of your home. Otherwise, you would just sell the home, which would be a pretty big mortgage, I'm guessing, which is kind of weird for a guy who's lived in the house for a long time.
So the answer to that question is I'm not quite sure where I'm going to live now, but I've been in Baltimore for since we started shooting House of Cards there.
So how long is that?
I moved there in 2012.
So this has been your home for 12 years?
Well, not this particular place, but this place has been my home.
I got a much, much bigger house after the wild success of House of Cards, is what I'm guessing.
And Evan and Lucy's home since 2016.
Why is it being foreclosed?
Because I can't pay the bills that I owe.
No, it gets foreclosed when you can't pay the mortgage, but he didn't say that.
Are you facing bankruptcy?
Been a couple of times when I thought I was going to file, but we've managed to sort of dodge it, at least as of today.
How much money do you have?
None.
That was good. That was good. That pause.
Really?
Well, I mean, you have some sense of legal bills.
Yeah.
I still owe a lot of.
He has some sense of legal bills because he was busted hard for putting false pictures up to portray certain events during the Iraq War.
Legal bills that I have not been able to pay.
You're actually in debt?
Yes.
Do you mind me asking how much you owe?
It's considerable.
Millions?
Many millions, yes.
I mean, you can owe many millions on a house that's worth many more millions. This is very equivocal.
The house itself is many millions.
What are you going to do?
Get back on the horse. Get back on the horse.
With that, people, thank you so much for joining me today. Whoa! That's my producer. I hope he didn't see that. Anyway, goodbye. Thank you. This is Monica Perez. Thanks for coming.